Everyone, and welcome to another episode of Let's Build a Telephone System utilising Laravel and Twilio. So this one's going to be a relatively quick tutorial. I reckon about 5 minutes, to be honest. The code's quite straightforward, but I got a request on Instagram from one of my subscribers who said, could I have a look at doing muting and unmuting, and I think it was hold and recording as well. Obviously all that in one video is probably a bit too long. I want to keep them in bite-sized chunks going forward. So I think for this episode we're just going to focus on muting and unmuting ourselves whilst on the call. Eventually we can look at muting the other person from our end if we wanted to as well, but let's focus on just getting mute and unmute on our side first. So with the HTML template, what we have already got is the mute and unmute button. I did do some testing a minute ago, and I've noticed that the styling is a bit off for this because it's got height and pointer event zero, height 0 and pointer events none, so that the buttons weren't getting triggered. So what we first want to do is get to that CSS, and let's just get rid of them. Let's comment them out for now, so if we ever need to add them back in we can, but let's just get rid of those. Then let's go to the mute button, and what we're going to do is get rid of this data label mute. We're going to get rid of the style background, and we're just going to have a plain button for now. We can eventually implement font awesome icons or any icons you want, but let's just keep it really simple. And what we're going to do is add a class to this button, mute. We're going to change that to unmute when we have muted the call. So let's give unmute some styling. And in fact, let's make it this color. So we've got our unmute and mute classes set up. So let's actually put the Twilio code in to then click this to mute and unmute a telephone call. So for that, we're going to bring up telephone call. We're going to go to this function, and what we're going to do, I'm just going to itch my nose in the process, is we're going to create a new function to mute telephone call. Function mute telephone call. The parameter is obviously going to be our call instance. Muting ourselves on the call. So what we want to do is call.mute true, and then update the classes. .mute .remove class mute .add class unmute. It is that simple to mute a telephone call within Twilio. It seems too simple, but that is as simple as it gets. So let's do the unmute telephone call whilst we're here. So unmute telephone call, unmuting ourselves on the call, call.mute false. Unmute the call, unmute.remove class unmute, add class mute. So now we need to run these functions. So the first place where we need to do it is when we're actually calling out. We've got our end call button here, so we need to actually do our mute button. So register mute button listener, mute.on, click function mute telephone call. And then what we're going to do is duplicate this for our unmute. Seems simple enough. Unmute telephone call. And then we're going to copy these, and we're going to bring that down to the incoming phone call as well. Let's let that format, and let's actually give this a test. It should, in theory, work. I know not everything always goes to plan first time though.
You can remove this message at any time by upgrading to a full account. Press any key to execute your code.
Okay, that didn't work. Let's just give it another hard refresh to make sure we are connected, because it should call us. And I did actually update my Twilio URL with my ngrok URL. There we go. Perfect. So we'll accept the call. You can hear me through my telephone. Hello, 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 hello. So you can hear me through my telephone. We're going to mute. Hello, hello, hello. And now you can't hear me through the telephone. That is as simple as it gets. Red, it's gone red to say we've muted the telephone call. We now need to do the unmute ourselves because it's remuting ourselves. So if we actually inspect this button whilst we're still on the call, it's got unmute, but it's triggering the muting ourselves on the call. So let's just double check we've not done a typo, and we haven't. So this won't work because the unmute class isn't on there by default. We're adding it afterwards, so we need to do a document listener on the class as opposed to directly listening for that class. So if we just end the call, and the UIs, I've noticed with a bit of testing that we're not updating the UI in every instance, so that is something that you can refine. The code is pretty much there for it. You just need to listen for when a call gets put down on the other end, which again, that could be something we do in a quick video. But let's just get this changed. So we're going to document dot on click, then we're going to listen for unmute function, and that should be it. Let's just give this a test, and we're going to give it a hard refresh, make sure we're connected because it was playing up a minute ago for some reason. Wait for the file account message to go. So we got the call. Hello. Right, so you can hear me. Muting. And now it's unmuting. Okay. So why would it? Okay. So it's muting and unmuting ourselves straight away, which is obviously not what we want to do. And that's probably because we've got this in two places. I wonder, so if I temporarily comment out this and give it another try, and I won't, in fact, let me just put the phone down, give it another hard refresh. And let's just wait. Hello. Okay, so it's still not working, which is very strange, because it should be, because we're not clicking on mute at that particular time. And if we actually have a look at the log, it's muting and then unmuting ourselves. So it shouldn't. So it's muting the telephone call. So what we could do is comment out the unmutes temporarily and give it another test. And what I've noticed with development over my years of experience is a lot of the time it is a bit of trial and error. If something doesn't work first time, it's just a bit of playing around to get it working. So let's try this again. We've got the call coming in. Muting is working. Hello. So mute does work. If we inspect that button, we've got unmute. So let's do this a little bit differently. The document on listen wants to be a bit funny. So if we actually undo all this to .onMute, and let's go to our mute button, let's do it a bit differently. So let's do unmute style equals display none. So mute telephone call. So dot mute. So we'll hide it and we'll show it. And then here we'll do the opposite. So we'll show mute, hide, unmute. So let's see if this way will work. Obviously, if you've got a bit more time and you're not recording a video, then you could probably play around with the document on click and see why that's not working. Probably because I need to do e.prevent default or something like that. Something really minor that I've probably missed. But for the purpose of this tutorial, let's do 2 separate buttons just to get it working and demonstrate that it does unmute the telephone call. So we've got the telephone call coming in. Another test. Hello. Hello. So you can hear me through the phone. Mute. Hello. Perfect. It's muted. Hello. And it's unmuted. So that is how you would mute and unmute a telephone call within Twilio. Obviously, this styling is not how we want it to be. It's probably, well, I'm not even gonna mess around with the styling. The classes look the same. It's probably just because I'm hiding and unhiding, which for the purpose of this video I'm not too bothered about. I'm not quite sure why it's not working. I mean, yeah, I mean, for the purpose of this video, it's demonstrating that it does unmute and mute. Let's just put that down. There's an example of the UI not updating as well. That's something we also need to have a look at potentially. But yeah, the main thing I did want to cover was muting and unmuting a telephone call, which we've addressed within this episode. It is as simple as getting the call object, which is a Twilio instance of a call, and just doing mute true to mute the call, mute false to unmute the call, and it is as simple as that to mute it from our end. Obviously, if you've got more time, and obviously you will have in your own applications, you can then mess around with the styling and make it fit your needs and get it working with one button really. That's the ideal solution rather than 2 separate buttons, or potentially even 2 separate buttons but actually with functional styling. But again, all these episodes are purely just focusing on the back-end functionality, so I'm not going to bore you to death with my inadequate front-end skills, which are quite evident from this episode. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this quick tutorial. If you have got any suggestions like this person suggested, then feel free to put them as a comment, send me a private message on any of my social medias, and I'll be sure to try and get a video out ASAP just demonstrating how to get that functionality in place. In the next one, we'll probably look at holding a telephone call and then unholding it, and then going on from that, we'll probably look at recordings maybe, or even muting the other user. And we'll probably spend one episode near the end of the series completely just cleaning up the front end in terms of fixing the little UI tweaks. Maybe I could do that off camera and then release the GitHub repository for everyone to take and learn from really. But yeah, hope you like this video. Please subscribe, like the video. I appreciate it a lot, and look out for the next episode. Cheers.